You're getting a standard Don Toliver performance with a WizKid feature. It's
It
good.
was
I mean,
fire.
is it something that I'm going to be replaying in the morning while I put in my rotation? No. That was one of our reactions to Don Toliver's new album called Lovesick. If you guys want to watch the full live album reaction, which we did with our community yesterday night, the link is in the description for you guys. You could go access the page. But Lou, let's dive into this full album review for Don Toliver's new album Lovesick. And this was highly anticipated for me, bro, because you know what Don Toliver could do on a studio album. You know what he could do on a feature game. But let's get into the artist performance. How do you think he did on this album?
Yeah, I mean, going into this album, I was a big fan of Heaven and Hell. I thought that was a really cool album. Life of a Don was kind of a mixed bag for me. So going into this, I didn't have the highest of hopes, and even the singles were pretty mid. And to be honest with you, artist performance was disappointing just because I feel like you're getting that standard Don Toliver auto crooning for the majority of this, but you reach a point where his melodies just start to bleed in with each other, and a lot of the tracks sort of feel the same in terms of his performance, not super dynamic whatsoever. And there was a stickiness missing that I wanted to see, bro. Like, out of the entire track list, there was only one hook that was actually infectious and catchy, and for me, that was on the song Slow Motion with WizKid. So, super disappointing for me, to be honest. And, I mean, he also does a lot of moaning on this album, and it's not cute.
And it doesn't work too well. But I will say
annoying.
this, though. He has his strengths on the album for me. I want to go to something like Lovesickness. I really did enjoy that grouchier, more, I would say, deeper cadence that he brought to that song. That was cool for the first one. Let Her Go. He was hitting some nice high notes, bro, especially towards the beginning of the track. So I did like that
You
as
like
well.
the high notes because, like, I feel like when he
It
was
was
using
good.
the falsetto on something like Leave the Club, it just sounded like kind of
It was
forced
a hit or
and
miss on the album.
unnatural.
Yes,
you know
it
what
was
I
a
mean?
hit or miss on the album. On something like Let Her Go, I do feel like it was
Yeah.
merited. But example, something like For Me, like you can't even make out what he's saying at certain moments just because of the amount of vocal effects that there are on his vocals at certain points. And I get it. People really do enjoy a psychedelic and more outer space experience from Don Toliver, but when it comes in front of, let's say, the quality of the vocals, I don't necessarily think that was a good calculation on his part. And you're not going to get much experimentation with Don Toliver, and when you do, it's going to be in certain areas. Example, something like Honeymoon, where he's a bit more quirky with his performance and he's trying to get into different flows and bags. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it's nothing too groundbreaking to where you're like, wow, this is a must-save for me.
Sounds out of pocket on Honeymoon, to be honest. Same situation with something like Private Landing, where he's trying out these quirky inflections, and none of them really land, to be honest. And the biggest monstrosity to me was probably Take Your Time, where he just absolutely did his best to ruin an 80s classic disco jam, bro. Like, I didn't know what
It was
the
a
reason
it was a poor execution on the interpolation. I really
Yeah.
didn't enjoy it, and I went back to that sample this morning, and I'm like, wow, you know, it's a fantastic song. All jokes aside, if you guys haven't heard it, please
SOS
go,
band.
yeah, please go listen to it. But I mean, the issue with Don Toliver's performance was that I feel like he could have done much more with this album. I'm being honest with you, and I do feel like in certain areas the tracklist got flat. You know, as you were saying, you're getting to that halfway point or 75% in, and I feel like Don Toliver could only do so much to keep you entertained. Example, something like Heaven or Hell. You know, he kept you entertained all the way through because the track list was concise, everything flowed well together, you had a lot of entertainment throughout all of it, and even something like Life of a Dawn, the first half was well executed upon it, and there was a reason to go back. With this, I feel like it's extremely lackluster as far as performances go, and I genuinely do think that Don Toliver could have done a better job.
Yeah, he had definitely a mid-performance, so that's the rating that we're going to go with for today. But let's keep on going with the features, and pretty stacked feature list, guys. I'm not going to lie. We had Brent Faiyaz, we had Justin Bieber, we had Future, we had Charlie Wilson, we had James Blake, and that's where I actually want to start is with James Blake's feature on Let Her Go, and he steals the show with his angelic vocals as he always fucking does, bro. Like, he's just a cheat code the same way that Sampha is. And there's a really nice duet that they have towards the end of that track. And the chemistry is better than any other collab on this album.
Oh, that's for sure. This is one of the biggest like high points on the album for me. And someone in the Patreon live streams yesterday said that he came in at a perfect time, bro. Like, the song was super well done. I really do think it's the best feature on this album. But let's go on to one of the singles, and that was Lead the Club featuring Glorilla and Lil Durk. And I don't have a problem with either of the features. They're super standard verses for both of the artists. I mean, full of those verses are in their own catalog. So I'm not blaming them per se. It's just this song does not make sense. Once you get to that Glorilla part, there's a bit of an issue because they have to completely change the dynamic of the song just to make her fit on this track, and it felt super forced. And even for Dirk, it just felt like, okay, let me grab a 15-second Dirk verse and see where it fits in the middle of the song. So I feel like these were just not executed as far as placement goes.
That's definitely a good point, and I kind of feel that way about the entire album, where yes, some of the feature performances were quality. You're getting great vocal performances from people like Charlie Wilson or even someone like Kali Uchis, who did a great job on For Me, but there's just a mismatch between those performances and the actual production selected. So I feel like on Don's part, in terms of the curation, he did a bad job at choosing which artists should have fit on which productions, and that's kind of a sentiment that I have for pretty much every feature on here, with the exception of maybe Wizkid and James Blake. And Wizkid also brought this very unique flavor to that soundscape that I thought was needed, was refreshing. So shout out to him. Let's talk about Justin Bieber and Future, though.
Okay, listen, this was a track that I was hoping to get quality out of. That's really the narrative for me in this track, but I didn't get that. I'm going to be honest.
Isn't the narrative with every track?
Yeah, well, it's a big portion of the album, and then once you get to Future's verse, Future has a really solid verse. I'm not going to lie to you. It's definitely a highlight within this track list, but I was expecting something like a Maria I'm Drunk maybe performance from Justin Bieber, especially on a trap production like that, but he doesn't do much, and the whole like I'm heating up like a microwave sort of bar doesn't fit nice within it. So I wasn't a fan of the track. Maybe you guys are, but no, I definitely don't think it worked well.
I mean, you have Justin Bieber. Don't you want like a true ballad out of that instead of like some basic rapping from him? Like, it just wasn't really fitting for me. And for Future, he actually had like the best line on the whole album. He had a bar where he said, "I can do this in one take, but my style ain't free." I'm like, shit, okay, there's actually a little ounce of wordplay within this track list for once.
Yeah, and I think that you are going to find some good features on here. Example, Charlie Wilson on If I Had. He had the outro on the song, and it was really well done, and I actually really enjoyed it.
Until Don decided to trample his vocals on top of Charlie Wilson's outro. Like, I was like, why?
And no, yeah, that should have absolutely been the end of the song, but let's go on to Brent Faiyaz on Bus Stop. This was a big track for a lot of people because how was it going to come out? You know, where were they going to meet? And to be honest with you, I feel like it was a Glorilla situation where Brent Faiyaz was just placed on the wrong song. Like, they had to completely change the tempo and the soundscape of the song just to make him fit. And again, it felt forced. And I think this would have been a match made in heaven. You have Don Toliver and Brent Faiyaz, two fantastic vocalists, both make exceptional mood music, but this didn't feel like that.
Yeah, I mean, when it came to the Bus Stop track, I just feel like by the time that you get to Brent Faiyaz's feature, the song already completely fell apart. So there was no salvation at that point for me. It just sounded decent at best. So I think overall you are getting strong vocal performances from the majority of these features, but due to the mishaps of putting certain artists on certain types of styles of production, like having the Brent Faiyaz on a Jersey Club beat, I feel like the execution was pretty poor. So overall, I think we're at the good range for the features.
We're at the good range. They were solid, but listen, the mismatch definitely knocks off points here. But let's go into the content, okay? And Don Toliver is actually a good writer. I'm dead serious. Like, going into Heaven or Hell, you will find a full-fledged concept within that album. It's super light. It's nothing too crazy, but it's actually well executed upon. Plus, you do get great writing performances from Don Toliver on songs like Drugs and Hella Melodies, bro, where the lyrics are infectious and you feel like you're a part of the track and it feels super alive. On the other hand, throughout this album, there's really none of that, bro, and I'm really sorry to say it. Then I get it. There's a concept of this being a romance album that's supposed to be, you know, good and bad at certain situations, but if the concept of the album is 16 like more mismatched bubblegum sort of lyrics in every single track, and that's the concept of the album, what's really going on here as far as the studio album experience?
Listen, it's a very loose narrative. It might be the most like focused narrative to some degree, just because it does kind of base itself around the fact that Don is trying to resurrect this failing relationship, and it's the highs and lows of that couple. But I just feel like the lyrics are so surface level, and the through lines from track to track are so out there that by the end of it, you don't even really care about the actual development of that relationship.
Well, that's if you pick up on it at all. I'm being honest.
Exactly.
That's if you pick up on it at all. Like, getting towards the end of the track list, you're wondering, like, what just went on here? You know, what was I listening to? And even at that, okay, if you wanted to have features play into the narrative of this album, which was kind of the marketing behind it as well, you would want them to feel like they're well incorporated into the track list, and that didn't even happen from a thematic
Yeah,
basis.
because the rollout made it seem like it was actually going to have a cool concept because you had little videos of him being like in a diner trying to avoid his girl.
It had like the heroes and villains
there was
sort of vibe
there was
to
a
it, you know?
character build up in the rollout, but then when you get to the album, that was missing. And then you have tracks like Go Down, where it's literally Don Toliver giving us a 3-minute plea of him begging his girl to get freaky in the back seat. So, I mean, take that as you will. The content was mid to me.
Yeah, it definitely was mid, and it's not to say that Don Toliver is a bad writer. He has had good writing performances, but in this album, you're definitely not going to find that. Let's get on to the production, man. I think that a lot of the mishaps and misfortune in this album are due to the production choices, bro. If you were to look at that feature list and you say, okay, there was miscalculations there, but the production was really good. Don Toliver carried every single track. Okay, I would have been happy with that. But the production, again, bro, it was flat throughout this whole album. This album won't it doesn't move you, bro. There's nothing that really gets you into the soundscape.
For me, the biggest issue is just the fact that you're not having that usual cast of producers that Don works so well with. For example, the absence of Metro Boomin was glaring. Also, Mike Dean didn't have a big role on this album, if any, from what I saw in the credits. Wonder Girl should have been on this album the way that she was on Heaven and Hell, producing amazing songs like Euphoria. So that was a big L in my opinion. But you are getting still heavy producers like Cardo, like Hit Boy, that are just not turning in quality beats, to be honest with you. I mean, I do like the fact that there is somewhat, at times, a consistent mood of like this electronic synthwave music of the 80s where it's very nocturnal. The beats have this thumping bass.
It's very subdued.
Yes, it's kind of like that synthwave mixed in with modern trap. But then you're getting Jersey Club beats and you're getting dance hall beats.
Okay, this is what I'm going to say about it. There's a lot of different bad calculations on this album as far as productions go. Okay, so listen, where do you want to start, bro? I could go Bus Stop, okay?
Yeah.
I don't know how a Jersey Club beat made the soundscape of this album. Like, it didn't add anything. And when you're in it, okay, Just Wanna Rock example. Let's go to another trap hit that's doing crazy right now. You're engaged, you're into it, bro. You're going crazy. But, bro, this was met with Don Toliver's, like, subdued vocals, bro, and him harmonizing. It literally had no place on the track list, or even something like Leave the Club, bro. That beat is a mess. Like, you're going through the entire track and the transition for Glorilla comes out of nowhere, and you're left wondering what was the actual purpose of this production.
Shout out to K Tronado though on Honeymoon, because he gave us
sick.
kind of this like synth funk type beat, which Don Toliver had no idea of what to do with it, but
it was good though. I'm gonna go back
that
to it.
instrumental itself was really nice.
It
Apart
was
from
really
that,
nice.
you're just getting a lot of generic trap beats on stuff like Private Landing, which had Travis's name written all over it. I don't know how he wasn't on that song. And yeah, just super underwhelming, to be honest. The production was mid to me.
Yeah, it was. Even something on Go Down towards the end of the song, like you have these glass like breaking in your headphones, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was. Or even something like For Me, where you get this melody impact that sounds like a Nokia cell phone mixed with like a Bollywood sort of like score soundtrack. It doesn't make sense. So the production is mid, but let's go on to the replay value, okay? I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I actually have songs I'm taking out of here. I know that this has been more of a negative review, but there's some quality tracks throughout this. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to keep. Love Sickness, the intro. I'm going to put that in my rotation. Let Her Go, Slow Motion, and Company Part 3. Those are the four I'm keeping.
My advice is to listen to Too Many Nights or Around Me off of Heroes and Villains. That's the best advice I can give. If you want some new quality Don Toliver, that's where you should be headed towards. But listen, if I had to choose some songs, I'm going to be totally real with you, okay? The only song I'm truly going to revisit is Slow Motion with Wizkid. That's truly
not even Let Her Go with James Blake.
Yes, I guess it was pretty good.
Company Part 3 was
that's what I'm gonna say. Let Her Go, Love Sickness, the intro. Time Heals All was also decent, and Company Part 3 was okay. But for me in my rotation, those are like the objective like quality tracks. All I'm really taking away from it is Slow Motion, though.
That's a good point. So yeah, listen, you're only maybe taking out
a handful.
A handful of tracks off of this album, and it kind of feels weird because I wanted Don Toliver to do so well on this album, bro. After those performances on Heroes and Villains, after the Donda performances, even his stuff with Travis, like, you want this guy to win and you want him to put out a quality studio album because he is one of the best vocalists in the game right now. But when you get the studio album experience, it feels very empty and I'm not enjoying it. So replay value, I'm going to go mid again.
Yeah.
You're not taking much
mid
out of it.
verging on bad, to be honest with you.
But let's go into the overall score. So, I mean, listen, guys, you're not going to get too much out of this album, but you do have your highlights. I do think it has its strengths where they are. I mean, there's not too many of them, but overall, I genuinely do feel like Don Toliver could have done a better job, especially knowing his talents and what he's done in the past. I hope to hear more work from him just to be able to see how he progresses as an artist and how he comes off of this next album, because maybe you guys might like it, but when it comes to my personal Don Toliver experience, I wasn't that here for the album.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it was a super underwhelming album for Don Toliver at a point where he should be having one of those top caliber albums that cement him as one of the leaders of the melodic trap and melodic hip hop scene. I feel like instead of climbing towards the throne, he took a few steps back and actually showed a lot of regression on this album. A lot of cheap attempts at different styles, and when he's not trying out a bizarre attempt, he's sticking in his comfort zone and not doing anything that's even remotely catchy, to be honest. And the production was really disastrous in terms of the beat selection. Overall, it is a mid album, bro, as mid as they come, to be honest.
It definitely is a mid rating. And listen, hopefully Don Toliver delivers something better in the future, and I think he will. But guys, let us know how you feel about the review. Let us know where we got it right or where we got it wrong. And guys, thank you for the support on all of the videos. We hope you guys enjoyed this review, and we'll catch you on the next one.